Picture this. You've just arrived at the airport for that trip you've been planning for months. Your bags are packed, your boarding pass is queued up on your phone, and you are totally ready to go. But you step up to the TSA checkpoint and you're turned away. No flight for you. Why? Simply because your ID doesn't meet the new federal standards. Well, let's make sure that absolutely never happens. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to demystify exactly how you can get a real ID-compliant license in the state of Missouri so your travel plans stay right on track. It literally sounds like a traveler's worst nightmare, right? But as we close in on some critical federal deadlines, being denied boarding is a very real possibility for thousands of Missourians. If your current driver's license or ID card isn't compliant with the new federal security standards, you just won't be able to use it to hop on a domestic flight. So we really need to make sure you're prepared. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover why you need a real ID, gathering your required documents, the actual application process, timelines and costs, and we'll wrap up with your biggest FAQs and expert tips. Part 1. Why you need a real ID and the federal mandate behind it. To really understand why we're doing this, we have to look back just a bit. Following recommendations from the 9/11 Commission in 2004, Congress passed the Real ID Act. The goal was to set strict minimum security standards for state IDs. Fast forward, and Missouri achieved full implementation back in 2019. Now, after a few extensions over the years, the ultimate federal enforcement deadline is firmly locked in for May 7th, 2025. So how do you know if you're good to go? It's actually super easy to spot. Go ahead and pull out your Missouri license right now. Does it say not for real ID purposes in the top right corner? If so, it's a standard ID. But if it proudly displays a little gold star up there, congratulations, you've already got a real ID. And that gold star is your literal golden ticket. On or after May 7th, 2025, it becomes absolutely mandatory for boarding federally regulated domestic flights, getting onto military bases, and, entering nuclear power plants. But here's the kicker. It is totally optional for everyday things like driving, voting, or just proving your age. Your standard ID is still perfectly fine for all of that. Moving on to part 2, gathering required documents. Preparation is absolutely key here. Look, you cannot just walk into a Missouri license office empty-handed and expect to walk out with a real ID. The federal requirements are strict. You're going to need one document proving your identity, one for lawful status in the U.S., one for your social security number, and definitely pay attention to this one because it trips people up all the time, 2 completely separate documents proving your Missouri residency. For identity and lawful status, you've got a few solid options. You can bring an unexpired U.S. passport, a certified U.S. birth certificate, or a valid permanent resident card. Just remember, these have to be the actual physical originals or certified copies. Absolutely no photocopies allowed. Now, here's an expert tip that will save you a massive headache. Look at your current, legal, full name. Does it exactly match the name on your birth certificate or passport? If it doesn't, maybe you got married or divorced, you have to bring in additional documents, like a certified marriage license or a court order, to permanently bridge that gap in your paper trail. Okay, part 3, the actual application process and visiting the license office. The physical process is a breeze if you're prepared. First, double-check all those original documents so you don't end up making 2 trips. Then, head to one of Missouri's 170-plus contract license offices. And when you get to the counter, immediately tell the clerk you're applying for a real ID. That just ensures you're on the right track from the very first minute. Let's hit part 4, timelines and costs. What exactly to expect at the register and later in your mailbox? Cost-wise, the base transaction fee for a real ID is actually the exact same as a standard license, but Missouri recently updated its processing fees, so you're looking at a $9 processing fee for a 3-year license and $18 for a 6-year license. The state might grant you a one-time waiver on that base transaction fee if you're upgrading early, but those $9 or $18 processing fees, those are mandatory. Now for the timeline, 10 to 15 business days. Unlike the old days where they just handed you a fresh plastic card right over the counter, real IDs are printed at a secure central facility and mailed out to you. You will get a temporary paper ID to use in the meantime, but, and this is a huge but, that paper ID will not get you through airport security. So absolutely do not wait until the day before your flight to handle this. Finally, part 5, FAQs and expert tips. Anticipating your biggest questions. We hear this one all the time. What if my current standard ID doesn't expire until, say, 2026 or 2027? Well, if you plan to fly domestically after May 7, 2025, you simply cannot wait for your normal renewal window. You're going to have to go in early and request a duplicate real ID transaction. Doing this secures that gold star well before the federal deadline. And hey, this is exactly where that one-time transaction fee waiver we just talked about comes into play. Though remember, you'll still pay that processing fee. Here's another really specific but super common situation. What if you're 70 or older and you have a non-expiring Missouri ID? The answer is yes, the federal rules absolutely still apply to you. Your state ID might not technically expire for state purposes, but the TSA won't care about that at the checkpoint. If you want to fly, you've got to upgrade to a real ID. And that brings us to maybe the biggest point of confusion. Is it actually Missouri law that you have to get a real ID? Are you legally forced to do this? The answer is a resounding no. Under Missouri law, getting a real ID is entirely voluntary. If you never fly domestically, never visit military bases, or if you're perfectly happy just bringing your U.S. passport along when you do travel, you are totally free to stick with your standard Missouri ID. A quick disclaimer before we wrap up. While this explainer is a fantastic starting point, government procedures can and do adapt. So always do a quick double check on the official Missouri Department of Revenue website before you head out to the license office, just to make sure you have the absolute latest guidelines. So the clock is officially ticking. That May 2025 deadline is going to sneak up on us before you know it. Take some time this week to gather those original documents, plan your trip to the license office, and secure your real ID. Because when that deadline finally hits, will you be breezing right through airport security, or watching your flight take off without you?